President Trump has officially become the new frontrunner in this election, all as the Democratic Party completely implodes. In this video, we're going to take a look at that magnificent speech that capped off a brilliant convention and see how all the latest polls have Trump surging and the Democrats and the mainstream Marxist media absolutely panicking. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. If you're new to our channel, we analyze current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends, so we can all live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel, where each and every day we together celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, before we jump into things here, we are, of course, in an election year, and of all of our presidential elections, few were as stunning as the election of Donald Trump 4 years ago. The mass surge of nationalist populism that swept him into the Oval Office shocked both pollsters and pundits alike, and 2020 will be no exception. But how could so many of our elites, from the mainstream media to political pundits, how could so many of them have been so wrong in 2016 and still not get it in 2020? Well, that's what my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, explores. In its pages, you'll discover precisely what our political class missed and continues to miss. The election of Donald Trump was nothing less than a symptom of the collapse of secular globalism as our dominant political paradigm. And so throughout this book, you'll learn about the worldwide clash between globalism and nationalism. You'll discover how the alternative media has successfully replaced the mainstream media for a growing number of voters. And you'll discover the various ways in which Trump's nationalist populism is redefining politics for the foreseeable future. And to make it even better, you ready for this? If you click on that link below, for a limited time, you can get my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, drumroll, absolutely free as an ebook download. You can get it right away, absolutely free. But this is a limited time offer, so do not wait. Click on that link below, get your free copy of my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, and let's make 2020 the biggest celebration yet for nationalism, populism, and traditionalism. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. Donald Trump is now the official frontrunner. His speech last night at the amazing Republican National Convention was, by all accounts, a fantastic capstone to a week that saw Trump's poll numbers surge to new heights. I love the way Michael Goodwin over at the New York Post put it. Trump went scorched earth in his speech. Goodwin's piece was republished on Fox News' website with a different tagline, but every bit is apropos. Trump threw so many punches that had it been a real heavyweight boxing match, the referee would have had to stop the fight in mercy. While it was all at times a soaring and beautiful speech, Goodwin is right. It was merciless in its badgering and pummeling of Biden and his 47 years of failure as an establishment Washington politician. And Goodwin amplified what he wrote yesterday, just before Trump's speech. Trump set himself up as the frontrunner by positioning himself as the defender of America and the American way of life. And he effectively identified the Democrats with the rioting mobs and the looting thugs and arsonists that are ravaging our Democrat-ruined cities. Trump said it beautifully, quote, "Despite all of our greatness as a nation, everything we have achieved is now endangered. This is the most important election in the history of our country. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny." Brilliant rhetoric there. It was so good. And then he asked the ultimate question: how can the Democrat Party ask to lead our country when it spends so much time tearing down our country? He even exploited the rolling blackouts in Democrat-dominated California. How can Joe Biden claim to be an ally of the light when his own party can't even keep the lights on? Game, set, match. I mean, that's precisely how Conrad Black of the House of Lords assessed it. Look at this tagline: "Barring another catastrophe on the scale of the coronavirus, This president will be reelected and be the only chief executive whose second term was more successful than his first. How's that for setting up 2024, huh? Now, needless to say, the Democrats are panicking today. They are in absolute and complete panic, okay? This wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be the week that Biden left Trump behind in the dust after successfully completing the best two political weeks of his life. The first week choosing the first African-American woman for his running mate, and the second week, Democratic National Convention that, with the help of the fawning and salivating coverage of the mainstream Marxist media, would seal the deal and give him a 20-point lead over Trump going all the way into November. That was the plan. To the shock of leftist liberals throughout the Democrat Party and the Marxist media, the opposite happened. The more we heard from Democrats and from Biden, the more his poll numbers cratered and the more Trump's numbers surged. And then you had the week of the Republican National Convention this week, which was, by all accounts, a stellar success. It was seamless. It was visually appealing. The speaker lineup was compelling. It had a grand narrative of the greatest of our nation and the threat to such greatness posed by destructive and lawless rioting mobs that are even now further destroying Democrat-ruined cities. And so CNN is now admitting, they're actually admitting that those peaceful protests are riots and they're destroying the Democrats. Don Lemon is worried. The CNN anchor, or better, the shill for all things leftist Marxist, is worried. And he's worried because he's noticing that the riots are indeed beginning to hurt the Democrats. Lemon is concerned that the rioting is, in his words, showing up in the polls and showing up in focus groups. It's so bizarre to me. Could you have ever imagined that CNN anchors would actually begin calling for the end of riots? Not because they're riots. Not because people are getting killed or businesses destroyed and looted and neighborhoods devastated. No, these guys over at CNN are so politically obsessed, they're so infested with the virus of cultural Marxism, that the only reason they could even fathom for ending these riots is that they're hurting the Democrats politically. It's killing them in the polls, in the focus groups, which of course we knew, we predicted. We have studies that show that riots turn the nation consistently to the right. Riots make America more conservative. So we knew this. We knew it was only a matter of time before public opinion began to turn decisively against the Democrats. And now we're seeing it happen, which is effectively situating Trump as the front runner. The latest Zogby poll of 1,000 likely voters has Trump now enjoying a 52% job approval rating, which is the highest ever recorded by Zogby Analytics for Trump. This was corroborated by Rasmussen, who had Trump enjoying a 51% approval. Again, higher than Obama's approval at the same time in his presidency when he went on to win re-election rather comfortably. Rasmussen's latest poll in the head-to-head matchup between Trump and Biden has them at a statistical tie. Just a month ago, at the end of July, Rasmussen had Trump losing to Biden by 8 points. So where are we today? As of today, it is now a tie, 46% to Trump's 45%. Biden's lead, that 8-point lead, has in a mere 4 weeks completely collapsed. The race is now officially a dead heat. The latest poll to come out of Wisconsin has Trump leading Biden for the first time in this election cycle. We have to remember, prior to 2016, Wisconsin hadn't voted for a Republican president since 1984. And to top it all off, Trump and Biden are now tied in the single most Democrat state in the union, Minnesota. Minnesota is as blue as a state as they come. It has not voted for a Republican presidential candidate since 1972. Trump and Biden are tied in a state that hasn't voted Republican in 50 freaking years. And all this fits perfectly with the prediction coming from the single most accurate forecast model out there called the primary model, which was developed by the University of Stony Brook professor Helmut Norpoth. It is indeed, it's a fascinating model. It's been applied to elections going all the way back to 1912, which was the first time when candidates had to win a number of primaries. And the pattern that the model picked up was that in each case, the candidate that was stronger in the primaries went on to win the general election. Indeed, when so many were predicting a Romney landslide in the 2012 election, it was Norpahl that had predicted since January of that year, several months before the election, that Obama would win by several percentage points. Same with 2016. The primary model gave President Trump an 87% chance of beating Hillary Clinton in the general election. And those results, if I recall, they were published in March of 2016, very early on. So in this sense, the primaries functioned very much like the general election in microcosm. The winner with the highest vote percentage of, particularly in the earlier primaries, so that would be New Hampshire, South Carolina, and the like, the winner with the highest percentage of the vote, particularly in the early primaries, always goes on to win the general election. So what that means then is Norpahl's model is the only one that has for more than 100 years selected the winner in virtually all presidential campaigns. I believe 25 of the last 27 elections. The primary model is a statistical algorithm that uses presidential primaries as the key predictor of the general elections. So what Norpahl found was that when he plugged in the data from the primaries, again, particularly the early primaries, into the statistical algorithm, the winner is determined by the algorithm lined up perfectly with the winner of every election since 1912. And so what's the algorithm predicting for November? Well, as I'm sure you've guessed, Norpahl has run his numbers for the 2020 election, and according to his election forecast model, the most accurate one out there, Trump has a 91% chance of winning re-election. Now, again, to keep this in perspective, again, just back in 2016, Trump had an 87% chance of beating Hillary, according to this very forecast model. He now has a 91% chance of beating Biden. And if you think it through, right, Biden up until South Carolina, the South Carolina primary, was considered politically dead. He was trounced in Iowa. He was embarrassed in New Hampshire. He was trounced in Nevada. Whereas President Trump has been setting new records for an incumbent seeking re-election. Trump is basically getting 2 to 3 times the vote shares that Obama got back in 2012, which was the last time an incumbent ran for re-election. So I'm happy to report, as the fireworks clear from the night sky over our capital, and as the race riots rage on in our imploding cities throughout the nation, President Trump is now officially standing as the front runner in this election, a position that he should be able to maintain going all the way into November. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on CNN and MSNBC's Rachel Maddow getting absolutely humiliated as they try to gaslight these destructive riots going on all over our nation as mere peaceful protests. It's going to make your day. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.